Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? If you can hear me, say something in the comments. Excellent. Well, first off, I would like to appreciate or thank all of you all for being here today. We actually have a very talented artist who's going to get us kicked off. Her name is Natalie Rojas. She's a Latin world genre artist, a natural-born entertainer whose talented in writing, singing, and acting. She enjoys using those to kind of uplift and empower other people. So we're going to go ahead and get started with her. I'm going to pass it off to Natalie. Natalie, let me know when you're ready. Excellent.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to sing a beautiful song to empower my beautiful people, for all the heroes within. There's a hero in your heart. You don't have to be afraid of what you are. There's an answer if you reach into your soul, and the sorrow that you know will melt away. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on. And then you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong. And then you'll finally see the truth, that a hero lies in you. Oh, Lord knows dreams are hard to follow, but don't let anyone tear them away. Hold on, there will be tomorrow. In time, you'll find the way. And then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on. And then you cast your fears aside, and you know you can survive. So when you feel like hope is gone, look inside you and be strong. And then you'll finally see the truth, that a hero lies in you. That a hero lies in you.
Excellent. That was beautiful. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. And so first, I'm going to just get started with introductions. Actually, before we get into the introductions, I want to hear a little bit from the crowd. I want to know where you all are tuning in from. So if you're able to just drop your city and state, or even your zone, if you're in Georgia, you know, where you're at in the comments, so we can give you some shout outs. Where's everyone from? And then as I see the names or the cities, I'll go ahead and shout them out. Okay, I see Atlanta. I see you, David. Atlanta. All right. What part of Atlanta you at, David? We got anybody else from Atlanta? East Atlanta. Okay. Is that zone 6? Okay. East Atlanta. Nice. Nice. Okay. We got Colin or Colin. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. Okay, I see Sunnyvale, California. Nice, nice. So you're on the other side of the continent. It's pretty early over there. I see 2 Californians. You all are tuning in pretty early. I see Marietta. Oh, somebody's on GSU's campus. Shout out. I'm a GSU alumni. Shout out to the Panthers. I'm going to tell you all a secret. I used to be the mascot at Georgia State. I was Pounce. So I was a Panther for a while. Okay, I see Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Shout out to you all. Shout out Travis Scott from Houston. Augusta. Nice. Vince is from Atlanta. Okay, I see you repping Oakland, California. Nice. We got a lot of West Coasters out there. Welcome. It's early over there, so good morning to you all. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and get into the introduction so we can go ahead and get started with the conversation. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself first. My name is Malcolm Sawyer. A little over 10 years ago, I started a clothing line called Lifted Clothing Company. You may be familiar with it. The logo is a brain with wings. The brain represents knowledge and wisdom, and the wings represents creativity and intuition. And so while we started off as a clothing line, I decided that I kind of wanted to do a little bit more than make t-shirts. So right now we're kind of transitioning from solely selling products to being a more community-led and community-driven organization. And so we're kind of working through that right now. And that's why I was very happy to be a part of this experience with Calvin and Deja. And I think this would be a great time to go ahead and introduce them as well when you all are ready. Hey, Calvin, how are you?
What up?
Hey, Deja, how are you?
Good, good.
So I guess I can go first as I'm on the screen next to you. What's up, y'all? My name is Calvin Orr II, from a little place called Flint, Michigan, if anybody ever heard of that place. I am the son of Yolanda. I'm the son of Calvin. I am the son of Quincy and Daisy. I am the son of Jimmy and Neil. I stand on the shoulders of incredible trainer facilitators who came before me. I do not enter rooms without mentioning Naomi Long. Naomi, if you are watching right now, you changed my life in 2014. I really, really deeply appreciate you. I stand on the shoulders of Alex and Heather at Beyond 12. I stand on the shoulders of my therapist, Ethan. I stand on the shoulders of incredible facilitators who came before me. And the person that you're looking at right now is really just a mirror of all of those people combined. I stand on the shoulders of Marvin Montgomery. Marvin, if you're watching right now, I appreciate you. I appreciate you didn't have to answer the call. Marvin Jr., I hope you're watching as well. I stand on the shoulders of Scott Walton. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you and Maureen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. So I'm just a mirror of all of those people. And so I'm really excited about this conversation today. I'm super pumped up. I look forward to what happens. And Natalie, oh my God, Natalie, I stand on your shoulders. Thank you so much for that song. It was absolutely beautiful. You give me courage. So thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Deja Richards. First of all, I just want to thank everyone so much for joining us today. Natalie, thank you so much for that song. Like, that song, Hero, is really setting the groundwork for what we're going to be talking today. So I honor you and I thank you. So as I said before, my name is Deja Richards. I am from a town called Emerson, Georgia. It is northwest of the city of Atlanta. So all of my Emerson people, Northwest Georgia people, make sure to spam these comments and represent. And so I really kind of wanted to do an awesome introduction today to really honor the heritage and the lineage of the women that have came before me. So my name is Deja Richards. I am the daughter of Bridget Wiley Reynolds. She is the daughter of Flunny May Wiley. She is the daughter of Eula Lindley. And Eula Lindley is the daughter of Alberta Graves, who was 1881. So I really just wanted to set the tone of how we're going to honor our ancestors in this conversation, and also how we are going to honor ourselves as we're still here on earth doing the work and living in our purpose. So once again, I thank you all for coming today, and I'm excited for a dope conversation.
It's very, very inspiring. And while we're on the topic of, lineage and heritage, I think it'll be appropriate to start the conversation by asking you all how empowering it is to understand or know about your family history. What type of confidence does that give you?
Yeah, so I can kind of go first. Really being a part of something bigger than yourself, it really allows you to walk in your purpose. And of course, we all know what has happened to African Americans in this
country and other people of color in the African diaspora. And so really being able to connect to my family lineage and my history, it really allows me to have a sense of self and to know that I'm standing on their shoulders, right? And the seeds that they planted, that they have been watered and nourished, and now I am a fulfillment of it. But it doesn't stop with me. I have to continue to grow and inspire for generations to come. So just my heritage, I take all pride in it, just complete joy. And even those that I have not met physically, they're still here with us spiritually. So that's definitely something for all of us to really like remember, is that our ancestors are always with us and are always guiding us.
That's an excellent point, Calvin. What are your thoughts, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, man. I often so let me just, so my number one value is authenticity, and so I want to lead with this, that this thing right here, like I speak professionally, but speaking is absolutely terrifying for me. This is absolutely terrifying for me. And when I think about when I stop and slow down and I think about like, okay, Calvin, what is it that like causes you fear? And what can you use to combat that fear so that you can overcome and do the scary thing and watch the magical things happen? I often think about my ancestors, my granddaddy Jimmy. So I come from a very interesting family. My granddaddy Jimmy is from the South. All of my people are from the South. And I was having a conversation with my granddaddy Jimmy the other day, and he was telling me that when he was growing up, he was poor, and his mother didn't have money to buy shoes for him, so he didn't start school until the 4th grade. And mind you, I'm just learning this like maybe a few months ago. So my granddaddy Jimmy didn't start school until he was till the 4th grade, and he repeated 4th grade, and then ended school, stopped going to school after the 8th grade. And after that, he went into business for himself. And so the first entrepreneur in my family was my granddaddy Jimmy. But check this out: my granddaddy Jimmy, for a living, he was a bootlegger. And so he made alcohol, he sold alcohol to like these illegal clubs that were in the South. And so like when I think about my granddaddy Jimmy's story, I often think like how important education is for me, and just like learning things. And that I have the opportunity to do that. But I also think like my granddaddy was a hustler. Like he didn't depend on somebody else to try to figure it out for him. Like he did what he had to do, whether it was illegal or not. And he made a living, and he was really creative about it, so he didn't get caught. And so I really appreciate that. And so when I think about my lineage, I think about like, okay, Calvin, what things already exist inside you before you were even here? Energy is neither created nor destroyed. And so the hustler spirit that's in my granddaddy, it didn't stop with my granddaddy, it still lives in me. And so when I think about him, I'm like, all right, Calvin, this hustler that's in you, it didn't just start with you. It started with Jimmy, and then it moved to Calvin, which I'll talk about him later. And now it's in me. And so it just reminds me of my hustler spirit.
Excellent. That is excellent. That is really, really powerful, both of you all. And I agree that there is a certain level of confidence that comes along with understanding your family history and being able to call on those ancestors, and even just knowing that that same blood is flowing through you. Oftentimes I say that, part of the African American experience is the fact that we were kind of cut off from that lineage pre-slavery. And a lot of the time, that kind of creates space for this identity crisis. And we fill in that space with the images that we see in the media, rappers, athletes, and all of the things that they're telling us about ourselves. And I personally think that it's time that we start creating our own narrative and we take control of that. And so, again, that's why I'm glad that this is happening. And I think more conversations like this need to happen. So thank you both for sharing that. That's actually really empowering and encouraging me to kind of do a little bit more research and figure out, who came before me. But, in the order of, getting back to kind of the finance and the economics, and since we're talking about family, what I would like to discuss next is kind of like, and Calvin, you already kind of touched on this, but when it comes to entrepreneurship, business, finance, money, are all of these things that were discussed in the household? Like, did you learn these things at home from your parents, or was this something that you kind of had in you and then you went out and seek outside counsel? I'm wanting to know, you know, kind of where that came from. Calvin, you touched on a little bit, but if you can go a little bit deeper as far as the connection between how, you know, a little bit more about where you find the inspiration to do the business.
Yeah, so for me, the inspiration for business just comes from the way I grew up in Flint. My mother, she was a hustler. She did hair in our basement, and she worked part-time as a bank teller. My stepmother, brilliant woman, probably on the top 5 like smartest people I know in the world. She's an educator, so she teaches like 2nd, 3rd grade in Beecher Community School. So if you from Michigan or know the Flint area, like, you know, Beecher Community Schools is right outside of Flint, and it's just as quote unquote bad of a school district as Flint is. But what I learned from like the way that I grew up, like from my stepmother, like from her, I knew that I wanted to be an educator because of the way that she just loved her students, the way that she approached her work. I was like, I want to be an educator. And when I first started college, and I learned how much educators make, and I was like, yo, educators make $30,000 to $40,000 a year. Like, as a kid growing up, like, I have no perspective to know that $30,000, $40,000 a year is absolutely no money. Like, if you're making $30,000 and $40,000, you're not making any money. But my dad, on the other hand, like, not college educated. And the greatest thing that my dad ever, well, from what I can say, the greatest thing that my dad ever did and the greatest gift that my father ever gave me was starting a business from absolutely nothing and growing it right in front of my face. And so I remember my dad started his business. He started his business when I was born in '88. But I started working when I turned 8. So I didn't have like regular summers growing up as a kid. Like, I worked 15, 16-hour days when my dad cutting grass, or I was managing a lemonade stand that my mom started for me. And when my dad was in like his 8th year, like, he had this like super raggedy truck, and it like had all these rust spots on it. It looked like it had a disease. And I watched my dad grow, and not just watched my dad, but I participated with my dad to grow his business from that one raggedy truck with a few clients to a business that does very well now in what's almost considered a dead city in Flint. And so for me, entrepreneurship came from like looking at my family, looking at my mother, who was a hustler, looking at my stepmother, who is a brilliant educator but makes no money, and then watching my dad eventually moving thousands of dollars in front of my face. I was like, to go to school and go to college and get a degree and accumulate a bunch of debt, like, that's not the only way to be to live well or be successful. Like, you can do this through entrepreneurship, and you don't necessarily need an education for it. And so although I did go back to school, I got a couple degrees, that's a whole nother story. But although I got my degrees, in my heart, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a creative. I'm an innovator. And I got that spirit from my dad and being able to participate with him through that experience. And when I really think about it, I got it from my granddad, who probably got it from his people too. So that's where entrepreneurship comes from for me.
Excellent. Deja, did you want to share?
Yeah. So I definitely echo everything that Calvin said. So as I said, I'm from Emerson, Georgia, which is in Bartow County. And so really something interesting about just kind of where we're from in the African-American community is post-Civil War is really where the African-Americans in that community really started joining into the economic landscape. And I would actually like to change that, because I come from a family and a lineage where we always made bountiful resources, whatever we had, whether it's a little or it's a lot. So that entrepreneurial spirit has always been within me. I just had to tap into it. And so with me creating Omni Minds this past February, I literally stepped out on faith, you all. Like, I always call the work that I do it's soul work. Like, this is not for self-gratification. This is not for me to just post up on Instagram. It's really me doing God's work here on earth and working in my purpose. But I had to get to that point to where I first believed in myself, right? But then I also had to remind myself of all the lessons that my family has taught me throughout time. So my mother is a banker, as well, Calvin, by trade. So growing up, my mother always taught me just the value of being in the economy and saving your money. And then really with that, my mother also told me just the second greatest lesson is knowledge is power. No one can take that away from you. And so that's really why my business is called Omni Minds. And I know we'll kind of dig deep down later, but really about saving money, investing, it's all a mindset, and we can all get to that level, right? And so I really just come from a heritage and a lineage of people that were real estate agents in the 1800s, barbershop owners, insurance agents, things that we do not even know about our own selves. And so really looking more into my own history and where I come from. And I'm just like, I have that same resiliency and that pride inside of me. So what's stopping me? And then, as I said, while I'm just on this trajectory and walking in my purpose, everything is just aligning. And the alignment is so beautiful to see, and to see your fruits of labor really being birthed right in front of you.
Excellent, excellent. Both of those were really beautiful questions as far as just, you know, being able to look at people directly in your life, you know, your parents. Those can be very great sources of inspiration. And then also having that representation right there within your household can be incredibly empowered. Incredibly empowering. I'm curious to hear from the audience. And bear with me because there may be a little bit of lag between your comments and me being able to see them. But I would like to engage the audience a little bit. You know, growing up, could you think of any Black business leaders that you looked to for kind of motivation or inspiration, just off the top of your head? I'm just curious. Let's see the answers. And Xavier, if you're there, you can put them on the screen as well. I would love to kind of see some of the answers here. And while we're waiting for the answers, there is a book that I read called Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. Someone says no. I'm curious. Credit repair. I agree. It was hard to find some, but this book that I was reading, Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, is basically Think and Grow Rich, but instead of using entrepreneurs that are predominantly white, it uses a lot of historical entrepreneurs that are Black. And that was very empowering because I just didn't know that there were that many people. And it can also be very, very discouraging as a young Black person if you're curious about, or if you're wanting to start a business and you see that it's predominantly other people or a very, what seems like a small group of people who are kind of running those industries. It can be discouraging because you don't see the representation there. And I also see Whitley here says she had no African-American business owners or role models as well. So that is, it's incredible that both of you all had role models within your household and then also familial role models and kind of saw that legacy. But I would like to encourage all of you all to take an opportunity to be that person for the next generation. And before we move on to the next section or the next questions, I mean, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to maybe share if there were any business owners or business leaders that they can look to or that they did look to growing up? All right, well, we will come back to you all, so you all aren't going to get away with just watching, but I'm going to get back to Calvin and Deja, and we're going to move on to the self-authorship. So we spoke about lineage and heritage and familial bonds. I would like to hear a little bit more about you all and where you're at now. So Calvin or Deja, first I would like to, well, we'll start with Deja because you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned stepping out on faith. And so in the spirit of stepping out on faith, can you tell me about a time where you took a pretty big risk or you took a chance on yourself in the business and how it shaped you and the outcome?
Yes, of course. So I would really say one of the biggest risks that I took was really creating my LLC. So that is something that a lot of us African Americans and people of color that we really don't even know how to do. Like, we really don't have the resources, or the resources may be there, but it's really not a lot of information. And so I really stepped out on faith, and I was getting this nudge. Like God was telling me, like, look, I'm going to need you to get this LLC. Like, this is what you need. And once you trust in me and get this LLC, then everything is going to flourish after that. So in February, I stepped out on faith. Me and my fiance, we sat here, we did my LLC. Y'all, I promise you, I really didn't know what I was kind of doing, but that's what Google is for, okay? Or public library is for. And so we really Googled a lot of the stuff that I should be writing down and putting down. And literally, you guys, after I submitted that application, business just started booming and everything just started going in order. And so that was definitely one of the first moments that I stepped out in faith as a new entrepreneur really in this space. Like I said, I've been entrepreneur at heart for all these years, but I had to take it up a notch and I had to elevate. And God was telling me, like, I'm going to need you to elevate, but you have to trust me first for this elevation to happen. And so, like I said, just stepping out on faith, getting that LLC, that was the greatest thing that I could have ever done.
Excellent. And Calvin, I'm just going to shift a little bit because I know that you are really big on relationships. And so I would like to hear from you about how important how important it is to kind of leverage relationships when growing or starting a business, and maybe even share some experiences that you have had where your relationships have had a good impact or a positive impact on your business.
Yeah. So I got two really quick things. One, when I started my first business, which was Lotus Living back in 2011, it was a landscaping company like my dad's company. Just like Deja, like I literally had to step out on faith. Like in 2011, that was a time where I got kicked out of school at like a 1.6 GPA. I got kicked out of college, and I was like a person that was living off of student loans. So when I'm not in school, I'm not getting student loans. So I got to figure out some other way to make money. And I was living in Ypsilanti, Michigan at the time. And it was either stay in Ypsilanti and figure it out or move back to Flint. And I wasn't trying to move back to Flint. So I had to like assess my life to figure out what it is that I know how to do so that I can make some money. And so I didn't have a car. I was borrowing one of my parents' cars. I feel I'm very privileged that I have the opportunity to do that, first of all. And so I put on some slacks, I put on a dress shirt, and I just went to this neighborhood next to where I live. And I was just like scared as hell, like terrified, knocking on people's doors, telling them that I can give them curb appeal. Like I can plant some flowers right there. I can cut your grass. I can trim your hedges. I can trim that tree up. I can stain your deck. I can just do all these type of things around people's houses. And like most doors that I knocked on, I got no's. I got a ton of no's. I got a whole lot of unanswered doors. I got a whole lot of, come back in 2 weeks and, we'll see what we can do. But then my very first client ended up being like my greatest client, Miss Roberts. She was like this 86-year-old white woman, super nice, super sweet. She allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do around her house. And so I like spruced it up. And so that one client, that one relationship turned into a relationship, clients on that block and clients outside of that neighborhood. And so that one relationship was super, super, super critical. I'm thinking about another relationship when I started my second business. But when I started this business, Stoics, so I'm getting ready to, so Malcolm, you know this story. There is so I'm gonna go ahead and name him. So this guy named Scott Watley. Okay, so if you want to Google this guy, Google this guy. But Scott Watley is the president of a company that has assets worth $60 billion, and I got a relationship with this dude. Like that's bizarre. And so one day I'm sitting at work, and one of my colleagues is telling this story about how this guy Scott like supported one of our students. And I was like, man, like what type of human being would see a problem like that in the world and like help out a student whom they don't have a relationship with, who they don't know. And so in that moment, I felt this thing called fear, which we'll talk about how I like kind of developed a different relationship with. And I was going to message Scott on LinkedIn, but I got scared and I didn't. And I went home and I had to deal with myself. I was like, Calvin, this is exactly what you're talking about. Like when you grew up poor in Flint, it's a ton of things that creates anxiety and fear when you grow up where I grew up. And like, this is the stuff that you're trying to train yourself out of. And so I did what's called lean into fear. So the next day I hit up Scott, like I did not expect him to hit me back. And he messaged me back. And that turned into like him bringing me lunch to my office, and then me being at his house for dinner, and then Scott introducing me to Malcolm, and like how all of these relationships form just from that one relationship. And because of that one relationship, like this project is able to happen. And so now there's this group of entrepreneurs who all have an opportunity to continue to build their businesses and build their brands and build this community of entrepreneurs because of this one relationship I have called Scott. And so relationships are absolutely key. Nothing in the world moves without relationships. And so I'll pause right there. I don't want to get too far on a soapbox, but I got something else for you though.
Right. Nice. Yes. That every time I hear that story, it gives me chills because, you know, I was part of that. I'm a part of that story, and this isn't an output of that relationship, or even just that decision to send Scott the email despite the fear. So you see what comes on the other side of fear. Had he not sent that message, had he not reached out to Scott, there's a big possibility that this wouldn't have been happening. I mean, I'm sure that maybe it would have happened, but I wouldn't have had an opportunity to be involved because Scott is the one who connected both of us. And then also just different conversations between me and Calvin. We'll be working on more projects in the future as well. So that's an incredibly powerful story, and really highlights the importance of kind of taking those risks and moving through the fear. Now I'm looking at the chat and I see that there's some conversations going on. I want to take it back to Brendan McNeil. Brendan McNeil mentioned that you had some family members to look up to, but you wish that you had a solid mentor. We'll go to this one here. You wish that you had a solid mentor earlier on to help navigate the business world. Now, Brendan, I don't know you that well, but I'm looking at your picture and you look like a pretty sharp brother and a very successful person. So I'm wondering now, you know, that you're wishing that you had a mentor. Are you doing anything now to kind of, you know, pour back into the cup of our Black youth? I'm sure that you are, but I'm a little bit curious about that. Actually, we'll probably connect offline about that. Because you look like you're a pretty sharp guy. Yeah, so I see the mentor, I see there's a conversation going on about mentorship, and I definitely agree with you, Tarika, that mentorship is key. And one of the biggest reasons that youth doesn't feel secure enough to step out. Okay, yeah, so I get what you're saying there, and that kind of brings it back to the point of just the lack of representation. So I really would like to just kind of one motif or tone that I would like this conversation to have is that, you know, a lot of us are now in the position to where we can kind of step up and be those examples that we were looking for when we were kids. And so we're still kind of on the self-authorship. I would like to hear from some of you all in the audience now. Do any of you all have maybe just a brief little experience or story that you would like to share that has to do with you taking a risk? We'll be looking in the comments. I'll move on to Calvin and Deja and ask them some more questions, and then probably come back to some of you all's questions after they answer their questions. And I appreciate all of you all's patience with me. While I do enjoy speaking in crowds in public, this is my first time doing it online, live via video stream. And it's kind of weird because I'm used to working off the energy of the crowd. But again, I appreciate you all's patience with me. And so we're going to bring the conversation back. Let me see. We have about 20 more minutes. And so I kind of want to shift from the self-authorship. I really do appreciate both of you all's experiences that you said there, as far as just kind of taking those risks and then highlighting, you know, the importance of moving through fear, just kind of stepping out on faith. And then honestly, when you start and you do something and you take an action, you're not always going to know the outcome. But when you have an idea to take an action, then you should, typically act on that action, within morality in the confines of the law. But let's take it back to the conversation. And I kind of want to shift from the self-authorship piece to now, we're talking about present. And now I kind of want to get a little bit more future oriented. So when it comes to addressing social changes, I'm curious about you all's thoughts, Deja and Calvin, about how important it is, to learn about financial literacy and entrepreneurship. Like, how can that help move us forward as a culture, as African Americans? Does that question make sense to you all?
It makes sense to me. I'm gonna let Deja go because I've been kind of talking a lot.
That's okay, Calvin. Look, this is all about storytelling, telling stories. So I've enjoyed even listening to some of your stories. So one thing about financial literacy, I really think the first thing that we have to do is kind of get out of this scarcity mindset, right? So as we all know, our beloved Representative John Lewis passed away yesterday. And so I actually have this quote here that he said, when you lose your sense of fear, you're free. And that really resonated with me because a lot of our conversations we have in African American households is really about money and kind of the attachment to fear that it has of money. Whether that's you are working 3 or 4 or 5 jobs just so you can have a stable household, or you even have fear of like banking institutions, and all of those fear I can totally attest to and I can agree. And so that's where I say my second point is we have to redefine what consumerism is. So I also have this other stat that I found. So the African American community, we put in $1.3 trillion into the American economy, 1.3 trillion. So if you think about our spending habits, right? So we have these spending habits over here. If we connect it to financial literacy over here, economic mobility will be amazing for the African American community. So we first have to redefine what consumerism means for ourselves, because we understand that a lot of these systems and these economic playing fields, they're rooted in white supremacy. And so we have to unroot that, right, and make it equitable for everyone. So we all have an equal chance and an equal playing field. And just one little note and story, I was having a conversation with my grandfather, Frank Wiley Jr., and we were talking how African Americans, how we've been resourceful since forever. So this whole go green thing, I mean, it's cool. I love it. But we have been going green forever. And it's kind of like how we can get like a bag from Target, Walmart, Kroger, and we can use it for 20 different things, whether that's deep conditioning my hair, whether it's using it as a lunchbox, trash can bag, whatever. But even those funny stories, when you look back in your life, you can see that we have been resourceful in so many ways. We just have to bring those conversations into our homes and have those conversations about financial literacy and be authentic and vulnerable to be like, hey, I may not know everything, but guess what? This is where we're going to start having relationships with people that do and start having that production of knowledge and seeking more knowledge so we can learn more. Excellent.
I do agree that I like what you said about the economic mobility and how if we take these consumer habits and combine it with financial literacy, it can kind of equate to that. And I also agree that there's just a lack of information within the Black community when it comes to some of these financial practices that we could use to move ourselves forward. But Calvin, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the first thing that I think of is a book that I read, or honestly, I've read this book like 15 times. I've listened to this book like 15 times since September of last year, and it's called The Obstacle is the Way. And what this book basically talks about is like problems really don't exist. They're just opportunities for us to be creative and be innovative. And so I'm thinking about Justin Troy is coming to my mind. And Whitley Neal is coming to my mind. I hope y'all still on the line, because they said in the comments that they had no examples of like Black entrepreneurs growing up. And I'm just assuming credit repair is Justin Troy, okay? And Justin Troy, like you gotta drop your IG, you gotta drop your information so these people can kind of like get to know who you are. But these people, like, they grew up without having any representation as far as entrepreneurship, and then instead of wallowing in that, and I don't want to say it like that. Instead of allowing that just to be their reality and just leaning away from it or freezing and doing nothing, like instead now they're becoming those people. So Justin Troy is an investor, entrepreneur, teaches people how to better utilize credit. Like, we don't know, we had this idea about what credit is, but we really don't know what it is. And Justin Troy is out there teaching people what credit is and how to repair their credit. And Whitley Neal is out here working full time as a project manager for this big firm, and she's running a real estate investment business on the side. And so I just want to lift those two people up because they're examples of how we can not have a relationship or experience or a model of financial literacy or entrepreneurship, and how they're allowing this moment in their lives to be that example. And so I don't know if I answered your question or not, but those two people were just on my heart. I just want to lift them up because they're doing the thing in the world. Like, the problem exists in the world, and then you can either lean away from it, you can either freeze, or you can lean into it. And both of those people are leaning into it, and I respect them for that.
Okay, I can feel that as well. And I do see where the answer was there, as far as mainly that kind of just takes us back to us. Although we didn't have the representation or the examples growing up, us kind of stepping up and taking steps and empowering ourselves. And then also with this information, the next step would be to pour into the younger generation and even pour into our peers. And honestly, some of us even need to pour into our parents because, you know, although they worked very hard, they may not have even had the time or the resources. I think the big leveler, or what levels the playing field here is the internet. We just have access to a bunch of information now. So I think that is really playing a key part in kind of leveling out the playing field. And so we have just a couple of minutes here before we're wrapping up. Let me see. And I did want to go ahead and shout out. I did see that there were a few people in the comments who mentioned, to get back to the mentorship. This particular comment caught my attention. So our grandmother, Hattie Sloan, was known as the Candy Lady. She sold candy sodas, hamburgers, and hot dogs. She was a major role in the model of our family. And then I saw somebody else shout out, yes, Mama Hattie was wonderful and a great example. And I think that this is an excellent story or excellent example that we can all kind of relate to, because I'm not sure where you all grew up. I saw some Atlantas, I saw some Californias, but I know within, you know, those tight communities, there is always typically someone like this in the community who's very industrial and entrepreneurial, but they're also very personable. You know, there's someone who the community kind of looks to for guidance and leadership. And I really just kind of want to drill into the point of, you know, even if you didn't have that person, you can be that person. And let's see, I'm looking at Terica Wiley. She says, yes, Deja, I call it the wilderness mentality. It would keep us in the cycle of lack. And it has to be a mindset change. Okay, yes, that's actually a really good point as well. Gil Scott Heron has a song or a poem that he says the revolution will not be televised. And the way that I internalize that is it starts within. You can't advertise that. You can't put it on TV. Now you can put the byproducts. We can do things like this where we have conversation and it flows without us. Flows outside of us into other people. But the revolution does start within. You got to change, be the change that you want in yourself. Like Michael Jackson says, start with the man in the mirror. And now I'm going to kind of open it up to Calvin and Deja in these last couple of minutes before we move on and into the next portion for the last 5 minutes. Is there anything that's on your heart that you would like to share with our audience members?
Yeah, so one thing that I would just really like to say, I know that we were talking about financial literacy, self-authorship, entrepreneurship. And so one thing for anybody, because I've been kind of looking at the chat, there's a lot of people here that are entrepreneurs themselves. And anyone that's a millennial entrepreneur like myself, Calvin, or you, Malcolm, really to know that these are my two biggest lessons that I have taken away. The first one is I had to let my ego go. And I had to die to myself. And some people are like, Deja, what you mean dying to myself? And what I mean by that is you cannot be ego driven when you're in this work of social change, social advocacy. Like you cannot work within the parameters of I'm doing this for me, right? And so that's one of my biggest lessons that I had to do or learn. And then the second one, I have it right here, is remembering not to promote the power structure. I think that that's so important. And maybe this could be like an economic power discussion part 2, but not promoting the power structure when you have elevated economically. And so we have to be careful of doing that. And that also starts with our mindsets, our spending habits, how we see ourselves in the world and outside of the world. And so I think it's just very important, really, those 2 points. That's something that has been grounded me, and that's really just been helping me on this entrepreneurial journey.
Excellent, excellent. I do agree that, I mean, with entrepreneurship, there is a certain act of selflessness, because realistically, I mean, you know, you get the stories of being the billionaire and being the star entrepreneurship, but a lot of the stress and a lot of the problems that you're dealing with has to go with, you know, when you get to the point where you have employees, making sure that your employees are paid and that they can feed their families. And a lot of the times that comes before whatever it is that you want, whether it's the Porsche or the Cartier shades or all of that. You have to make sure that your employees are getting paid. And so entrepreneurship, there's a certain level of selflessness that is kind of required, depending on what level you're trying to reach. But Calvin, is there anything else that you would like to share?
Yeah, the thing that's coming to my mind is, for me, entrepreneurship has been about a couple of things. One of those things being like self-awareness, and because there's one thing to know what the word, let's just say fear or depression, to know what that means, and there's a whole nother thing to like know the word and to be experiencing it. And so part of this whole journey for me has been this journey of like learning how to take good care of my body, learning how to take good care of my health, and learning how to take good care of my mind. And so today I ran 3.7 miles. Like I've never ran that far in my life. And when I was at mile 1.6 and I thought about mile 3, like the run started to get harder for me. But I reminded myself of the same thing I remind myself of in business is like, Calvin, just one step at a time. And that's how I overcome a lot of obstacles. So that's one thing. And I'll leave it right there before closing remarks.
That was really powerful. And yes, running is an excellent example of being mindful and still focusing on what's in front of you, to kind of continue to move through, because it's not easy being an entrepreneur. It's not easy starting a business. And so you're absolutely right that there needs to be investment in other areas of life, like your health and your mind, to kind of sustain the energy that's required when it comes to running a business. And so also I want to just highlight the book, The Obstacle is the Way. That's been sitting in my Audible account for about a month now, and I need to visit it. I've been really digesting the meditations, but thank you for bringing that and putting that back at the top of my mind. I encourage all of you all in the audience to check that book out as well. But the next part we're going to kind of move on to, we got a couple of minutes, and I guess we'll go over a little bit because we did get started just a little bit late, and I think that would be okay. But you know, the next part we're going to move on to is just kind of the gratitude and the closing remarks. So I'm going to open that up for Calvin and Deja, since this is their event. First, let me say I appreciate you all for thinking of me and allowing me this opportunity. And also, I'm very gracious to both of you all and the audience for your patience with me, because like I said, this is my first time doing this virtually, and it was a learning experience nonetheless, but I really enjoyed doing this. So thank you all.
You want me to go, Deja, or you want to go?
Go ahead, Calvin.
All right, super cool. All right, so I'm a bounce back to my last statement around emotional intelligence, around self-awareness, which is emotional intelligence. One of the greatest emotions that I've learned is this emotion called acceptance. And because acceptance allows me to get creative. Once I accept whatever it is, as long as I'm not judging it as good or bad, whatever the thing is, if I can just accept it for what it is, I can get creative. And some of the things that I've had to accept over the last maybe couple years of my life is this is my life, is why entrepreneurship is so important. Not just for the sake of like, let's start Black businesses and, because money at the end of the day is bullshit. What's valuable in entrepreneurship are the relationships that we form. So that's a whole nother conversation. We can save that for part 2. But what I want to say about acceptance is that we know that public schools are not going to teach our babies what they need to know. Public schools do not teach people how to think for themselves or to be creative. They teach people how to follow in line, memorize stuff, but don't teach people how to learn. Matter of fact, they punish the greatest lessons. If you fail a test, you get punished by getting an E. But in real life, when you fail, that's your greatest gift, because you can take that, you can reflect and take that opportunity as a learning experience and apply it in the future. And so acceptance allows me to do that. Another thing that I want to highlight is, so they're not going to educate our kids. The government or public funding is not going to keep us healthy, and they're not going to keep us safe. And so our opportunity, before I even go there, the reason the government pays for our students because we can't send our students to private school. Or so when I think about that, I'm like, all right, if we own our own capital, then we don't have to depend on the government to fund our schools, to educate our babies, to keep us healthy, or to protect our neighborhoods and protect our communities, because we can do it ourselves. And that idea is scary as hell, but that's the gift. So I think it's time for us to, I think we have an opportunity, an option to do the scary thing, which is cultivate a community of entrepreneurs who solve these problems instead of depending on the government to do it for us.
That's good stuff. I agree. One of the things that I deal with daily, not so much since COVID, but my commute. I live in College Park, Georgia, but drive up to Alpharetta every day for work. And so I have no choice but to look at the disparity and really try to figure out why it's so different up there and why it's so different down here. And obviously the biggest difference is the economics. A lot of the people up there they own their property. So they take more care, they have more pride in how their community looks. And also they're really involved in their community outside of just going to the store or saying what's up to their neighbors. They're at their MPU meetings and making sure that they're in front of the people who are supposed to represent them and holding them accountable. So that's one of the ways that we can begin to shape change, along with, a lot of people, when they reach a certain level or a certain amount, like here in Atlanta, it feels like a lot of people are trying to go up to Buckhead, but it's like, why can't we get our money and invest in our communities? When I go to Buckhead, I don't necessarily feel welcome. So I don't necessarily know if I want my money to go there. I don't care what image I'm promoting by living there. It doesn't feel like they want me there. So I'm not going to invest my money there. If I feel welcome here in College Park, I feel welcome when I go to Decatur, I feel welcome when I go to downtown Atlanta. And so I would just like to kind of highlight or really, just highlight that point of taking ownership and not necessarily relying on the government or waiting for someone to change our position. Deja, is there anything that you would like to share, Ad?
Yeah, so just with closing remarks, I really just want to say thank you to everyone who has joined this chat and who has joined this live. If you are a business owner or if you make any products, I want you to spam these comments. I want you to drop your social media stuff, emails, website. This is really a place where Calvin and I really envision of building community of entrepreneurships. And so I really want you all to put all your stuff down there. I can kind of see some people mentioning some stuff earlier about real estate and different things. I want to make sure that we all have this open forum so we can all follow each other. But first and foremost, I definitely want to give gratitude. Thank you so much, Calvin, for just really believing in me. Really, when we kind of sparked this idea in the midst of COVID, in the midst of this racial pandemic that we have going on, and really just you just pouring so much into me. So I appreciate you and I thank you. And to our whole team, to Natalie, to Xavier, to Aaron, to Malcolm, my fiance, Brendan, he also helped as well. You all are amazing. And Calvin and I could not have been in this place without you all. So thank you so much. So really just leaving on the notion that you all were saying just about entrepreneurship, not depending on the government, being self-sufficient. I totally agree and I echo with everything that you all said. And really another thing, just so I can just really be honest with you guys right now, in February, even after I got my LLC, I was about to quit. This is even a story that my family doesn't even know. I was about to quit. I was actually talking to somebody that is a consultant like myself. And she kind of asked me like, well, what is your business about? So I kind of started to tell her and she stopped me. First, she told me that my name was horrible, that my business model wasn't good and that it wasn't going to work out. And so I really sat in fear and I was like, oh my goodness, like I sat up here, I got my LLC, I'm trying to be an entrepreneur, I'm trying to do what I need to do to help change my community. And I'm looking at somebody that's very, very well known in this role in the city of Atlanta. And she's telling me that my idea sucks. But then that's why I had to change my mindset, get out of that wilderness mentality and really know that I'm moving in soul work and my operation is not bound by human expectations. And so I really just want to highlight that to everyone now, even though you're in COVID, let's say that you may think that you may close next week, you have to be steadfast in your faith and prayer. I'm telling you right now, and really being just open and vulnerable. And if you need help, we really need to start learning to leaning into our emotions and leaning on other people. And so just myself, I just appreciate you. I thank God first and foremost for just making all this happen. And you all have just been amazing. And I really hope that we can have another discussion. Calvin, Malcolm, if y'all ready for a part 2, let me know. This has been such an inspiration to me. And you all just don't understand. I'm trying not to get emotional, y'all. Okay. You all just don't understand. You all just don't understand how this has just impacted me. And I just thank each and every one of you.
Yeah. Again, I'm very grateful to have been connected to both of you all through this experience. And I do agree that a part 2 is definitely necessary. Now, Calvin,
Malcolm, can I say one last thing?
I was going to say, do you want to go ahead and take it?
Oh yeah, this is super quick. I have a lot to say, and that is thank you, Deja, for putting this idea into the world and trusting this partnership. Thank you so much. Thank you, Malcolm, for just being the dope human being that you are. Super emotionally intelligent. I really appreciate and respect you. Aaron, all of these graphics that we've been dropping all week, like they've been super cold. We could not have marketed this event the way that we were able to had it not been for you. Your eye is absolutely brilliant. Your photography skills are brilliant. Your graphic design skills are brilliant. Your real estate skills are brilliant. Your operation management skills are brilliant. I watch you work here every single day. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Natalie, thank you for choosing that song and giving all of us courage. Because I think there's something powerful in each one of us if we spend the time to discover it. So thank you for that. Excel Beats, Xavier, thank you for all the technical support in the background, dropping the ticker symbols, flipping the screens, playing the videos, just like making all the back studio stuff work. You're creating everybody's emotional experience right now, because by you're bouncing back and forth from the screens and you're flowing seamlessly, like that's creating an emotional experience for everybody that's watching. And so you're doing a really big thing right now. And I thank you right now. So yeah, that's all I gotta say. That's it. Thank you everybody who joined. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Calvin, for putting this together. Seriously.
So Malcolm, I do have one last thing. So as you all know, we also another one of our greats has now moved on as an ancestor. So I would just really love to leave off on this call. This is from the Reverend C.T. Vivian. He says, leadership is focused on the action to defeat that which will defeat you. You are made by the struggles you choose. So I really hope that you really take those words, permeate them, and that you can definitely apply them